What doors?
Go ahead.
Okay, I call to order the April 20th, 2023 Downers Grove Park Board meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bender,
Here.
Mr. Dahlstrom,
Here.
Mr. Katsula,
Here.
Ms. McDonald,
Here.
Ms. Mahoney.
Here. Everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any changes to the agenda?
Down this evening.
Okay, we have our first recognition of visitors. I see some visitors in the audience. If you'd like to speak, now is your opportunity.
I would. If I
I can.
Kind of up here.
Right.
Back up.
It's okay.
So, my name is Ken Lerner. I'm here on behalf of the Pierce Downers Heritage Alliance. We are a Downers Grove volunteer organization. We've been serving the community for more than 25 years. Our mission is to promote environmental and historic preservation. And part of that mission is to promote environmental education. So we are very pleased to support the Wonder Woods program that the Park District puts on over at Lyman Woods in conjunction with District 58. Through this program, we get to utilize Lyman Woods, this great natural resource that we are lucky to have right here on our doorstep. The students get a combination of classroom work now, and with the new expanded program, they get to do some field work. They get to go out in the woods and see some nature up close and personal, get a sampling of the woodlands and the hill and wetland environments that they have there. And hopefully that's going on right now and for the next month or so. They're scheduling classes to go through there, and they are probably going to hit some nice spring wildflowers now. So that'll be nice. Students from all 11 schools in District 58, all 11 elementary schools are participating, more than 500 kids altogether this year. For each kid, it's one day, but we hope that they will take away a lasting appreciation of nature. And I'd like to particularly mention so Ryan Maywin shared with us the materials that they prepared, the handout and the teacher instruction guide that they prepared. And we were very impressed with the materials. A lot of good information in there, and Ryan and his staff have done some really good work there. I'd like to express our appreciation of that. So we like to promote environmental education and collaborative efforts. So with District 58, so we'd like to express our appreciation in tangible form with a donation, which I'm going to hand over in a minute here. But I have one other thing I want to talk about first, which is the other thing we like to support is Arbor Day, and we have been doing this for quite a few years. We support we provide matching funds to purchase a second tree, and it's kind of a follow-on to the Wonder Woods program. As the kids come out, they're going to be at Patriots Park this year, planting a tree on April 28th and planting 2 trees. And the kids get a little talk on trees and their benefits and how to plant and care for them. And Park District staff, Mike Stelter and his crew, participate in that, along with usually 2 classrooms full of kids that come out to help out, and they get a chance to do some hands-on work there once again. So we have a donation of $1,000 altogether, of which 100 is to offset the cost of the tree. The rest is to go for partially offset the costs of supplies and displays for the Wonderwoods program. So we're happy to do that. Can I hand it to someone?
What's the money?
Who's the treasurer? Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate your generous
Thank you,
donation.
Ken.
Yeah, very much.
It's my turn. This feels a little strange being on this side of the. My name is Bob Gelwicks. Before the board changes, I wanted to thank the existing board for the recognition for the Gelwicks Park that you're doing. I'm really excited about it. It's hard to believe, but my family is really excited about it also. In fact, I've got a 2-year-old granddaughter and who knows it all. Okay, it's like every 2-year-old. And her mother says, Addie, they're gonna name a park after Grandpa. Goes, I didn't know that. She knows everything else. But anyway, I really appreciate it. The family appreciates it. And we look forward to seeing everybody on May 21st. Dawn has done a great job of documenting a lot of what's gone on over the years when I was on the park board. But I wanted to acknowledge the fact that Kathy Mahoney was a part to all of that also, okay? Those accomplishments that were done during those years and subsequent were not the efforts of one person. They were the efforts of a board and a staff working together to make things happen. And Kathy was a big part of that. Every accomplishment that's listed for me should go onto hers bio at one point in time also, okay? I was reminiscing about some of the times, the good times, the bad times. In the early days, all of the good times were at DuPage Inn, okay, after the meeting. We had some interesting times. And I want to talk about a few of the accomplishments, my perspective, and a couple that really don't come out that people hear about as much. I think one of our crowning accomplishments was the stabilization of the stream bank at Lyman Woods. And I say accomplishment because I believe it was a 3-2 vote to make that happen, with Kathy and I being 2 of the 3, which was not unusual back then. And I don't know how many 3-2 votes you have these days, but it was not uncommon. And so a lot of the things that we got done was because we worked together to make it happen. Now I'm moving. Is that a sign? You controlling this too? But anyway, Lyman Woods, I think, was a crowning thing. When one of the first things we did was synthetic turf at Dorhofer, okay? And again, that was a little contentious. And I'll say Kathy was a soccer mom at the time. I was baseball Bob. And we had an understanding of the fact that synthetic was the way of the future. And we had a football field that was being used 5 weekends a year and torn up and then resodded for the next year. And so it was only used 5 weekends because it got torn up those weekends with football. It wasn't used for anything else. That was one of those build it and they'll come. And Kathy was an instrumental part in making that happen. Similarly, we were concerned about safety, and safety in the context of putting in the ThorGuard system, lightning detection, because we'd both seen the effects of being out there at fields when storms are coming and people didn't know what to do. And we didn't get much credit for that. In fact, we got a lot of negative about that. And I'm sure you still have problems from that perspective today because people don't understand it. But that doesn't, I told Dawn, that isn't one to put on my list because while I recognize it, I think Kathy recognizes it. There's a lot of people that may think differently about that. But it was a big, big achievement. Something that staff probably doesn't know, Bill probably does, but there's a matching program or your retirement that was set up. That was something that Kathy helped facilitate. Okay, that was something that again doesn't get listed from that standpoint, but I think it was a significant thing that we tried to do to make a difference in terms of what happens with employees of Downers Grove, and to make it viable to go off and bring in the right people and be able to keep them here, because we could be a different place. We spent at least the first 4 years, it may have been 6 years on this board, trying to build a pool, or looking to see if we could build a pool, or looking to find a location to build a pool. You wouldn't believe the number of hours. I mean, we had meetings that went regularly for 3 to 4 hours to talk about the pool. Every board meeting, we had a long discussion about that. And I think from my perspective, what's happening now is the correct result. Another thing that came out of that was, at the time, the program where Downers Grove residents could go to other facilities. Okay, the exchange program, if you will. That was the outcome of all of the discussions we had trying to figure out what to do with the pool. But I also think what's happening at McCollum now with the splash park is the right answer for aquatics in Downers Grove to make a difference. And I look forward to seeing that conclude as well. The other, I think, crowning thing for us was the whole stormwater issue that we worked on with the village. But in conjunction with that, we ended up rebuilding Official Park in the band shell. That wasn't without its problems either from a board standpoint, because we were spending so much money to build this 50-year-old pavilion that was falling over. Okay, literally, the old one was not constructed properly and was actually falling forward. It was totally unsafe. And we built this thing that I think the community really recognizes today. But that again was something that we collectively worked very hard to make happen. And something that I'm really proud of. Washington Park was a part of that whole project, along with building the stormwater soccer field, if you will, at McCollum. And it was a wonderful run. I could go on, but I want to make sure that everybody recognizes that the other board members, and especially Kathy, what I've missed since I got off the board is a weekly phone call to talk about what's going on the board, because I get this phone call and it was, I got one question for you. And an hour later, we were on question 10.
Who would that be?
I don't know. The phone doesn't ring much anymore. Okay, and nobody else knew the number, I don't think. But anyway, it really was from the bottom of my heart a pleasure working with you, Kathy, through that time. We didn't know each other until we got on the board, so I know a lot of people saw us as a pair, if you will, from a partnership on the board, but we didn't know each other until we got on the board. And I think we both had the right ideas about making things better. Dan Cermak, when I got on the board, told me the one thing you want to do is when you leave here, make sure it's a better place than when you started. Okay, and I think everybody's done that. But I think that was something that we followed very much, was focused on making things better. And we all had agendas, but it became a collective agenda over time. So that, I've said enough for now, but Kathy, congratulations. Great job being on the board, and really appreciate everything you've done for us in Downers Grove too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I go next?
Yep.
And I'll put my timer on so I don't go too.
5 minutes. So my name is Howard Hansen. Sent an email to month and a half ago regarding Marduk. Just here to say, to follow up on some things. So I'm a resident of Downers Grove, been here 35 years. And myself and two others have 5 plots at Marduk. We grow organic vegetables that we donate to local food pantries. Doing it over 10 years now. Been enjoying it. I'm grateful. Mustard there. My wife and I have a 55 by 135 plot near downtown Downers Grove and plant the heck out of it, but nothing like having Marduk, which is wonderful. So I've through the years, I've asked things and most of the time the answer is no. It's very frustrating. Here tonight, just to say that both Mike Stelter and Kevin have been very responsive. I'm very happy with that. I'm glad that they're talking to me and listening. Still not happy with the answer. 2 things that I would bring to your attention tonight specifically would be is that the water is coming from spigots. And if you want to water your plants, you have to fill up buckets and watering cans and walk or use some sort of wagon to bring them over. So I estimate we spend 100 to 120 hours a summer over there, and about 60 to 70 of those hours I'm walking water, not gardening. And the technology is there. The logic I understand. You don't want to have the accident where somebody, probably a guy, sets it up and puts the water on and it doesn't turn it off, right? If you have a spigot with hoses that we would provide, obviously. And I know it's happened before a long time ago. The logic is that you don't want to do that. And I get that. But the logic is not sound, in my opinion. For that reason, why do you have basketball courts in McCullum? Somebody could go up for a slam and grab onto the rim, fall down and get a traumatic brain injury. Something. You're dealing with the public, things are going to happen. Right? So basing a decision not to have it where I can have a hose, the technology is there, plumbing is there. I'm sure we could have a system where it monitors the amount of gallons that are going, and if it goes past a certain number, then it shuts off. I'm sure there is. I get it though. It's about 100, 120 people that are at Marduk, and I know you have thousands of people that use facilities like McCullum. I get it. But if you're going to have the community gardens, allocate some of the $10 to $15 million a year that you have in your budget towards improving the experience. I would appreciate it personally very much. If I want to exercise and do the farmer's walk with the 5-gallon buckets of water, I'd much rather come here and exercise at the rec center rather than do. So, but the logic is there. I get that. The other one is that I would ask that, the village or the park district stop tilling. My 5 plots are in a part where there's a very slight incline. You wouldn't think it would be dramatic, but the way that the soil is turned over in the fall creates furrows going east and west. And the waters come, the rains come in the spring, and my soil washes away. The soil that I'm improving by bringing sand in, because that soil is so clay, and I've been improving it, and every spring, a lot of it goes away. I had what I call the mini Grand Canyon. I had one furrow that was 24 inches deep. So Mike and Kevin have done some preliminary things to help me. I'm just asking them when they do the furrows, just have the person do my area north and south. Apparently, I could be sarcastic and say that the equipment doesn't look north and south, but they're working on it. And I'm hoping that it'll improve. It's just very frustrating to invest money to improve the soil and have it wash away when it doesn't have to do that. So those are my 2 things that I would bring to you. Reiterate that I'm thankful that it's there. I enjoy it. People that you meet there are just awesome. It's the United Nations in there. People are growing some fantastic vegetables that and I totally steal their ideas on how to do things. And I enjoy it. And again, Mike and Kevin have been great. So, any questions? No? Gonna start writing checks?
I'll just give you a little background. We used to have gardeners come in and complain about people not cleaning up their lots. And that's how we started tilling, because it was just a mess out there. So there is rationale and reasons, as I'm sure Kevin and Mike have told you.
Right.
Of what is going on out there. But people would come in every year saying, get rid of those ugly, the leftovers in fall when all the foliage, no one cleaned it up. No one cleaned it up. So just on the other side,
Yep.
you can't make everybody happy.
No, you cannot.
I'm sure Kevin and Mike will try to work with you.
I will tell you though, that last year, I know that was the mark for my 5 minutes, so I'll just make one last point. Didn't notice last year from talking to people and hearing things that the theft of people's fruit didn't happen last year. Don't know why. As you know, in prior years, people were coming with shopping bags and just cleaning
Right.
their stuff. So Mike and Kevin did mention that they were looking at possibly some cellular phone-driven technology cameras, not only for people stealing, which really only applies from July to September, really. The fruit is there. They're not coming in May to weed my plot. So not doing that, but I will tell you, he did mention, and my wife saw today, a guy was illegally dumping stuff over there at the Grove, the Grove Dental, the building there, that's just south. She saw somebody doing it today. The guy was gone before she could take a picture of his license plate. But we know it's happening. We know it's happening, so maybe that would be worthwhile for you to do that. Because we had proposed that you do something like that for July to September when we're growing, right? But I'm hoping, knock on vinyl here, that continues and people don't come and steal. Any other questions? No? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Any online visitors?
There's one online visitor, but I believe this is for finance.
Okay, our auditor.
The auditor, okay. All right, is there any written correspondence?
We just have two interesting articles I thought the board would like to see, so I'll just pass those around.
Any other written correspondence? Okay. We're on to the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have 7 items for consideration this evening under the consent agenda. Approval of minutes, March 16th, 2023, regular meeting minutes, April 6th, 2023, workshop meeting minutes, and April 6th, 2023, closed session minutes. Treasurer's report, investments, payments in the bills in the amount of $1,905,254.75. Payout number 8, FH Passion, SN Nielsen and Associates, LLC, McCollum Park Spray Ground and Tennis Improvements. Payout number 20, Hitchcock Design Incorporated, McCollum Park Spray Ground Design. Payout number 2, Midwest Mechanical Group, LLC, Recreation Center HVAC replacement.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll move for the adoption of the consent agenda as read into the record.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom,
Aye.
Mr. Katrula,
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney.
Aye. Motion passed. Action items.
Thank you. Our first 2 action items this evening surround our annual comprehensive audit. The first is the audit presentation, and second is a recommendation to enter into a new 3-year agreement with Sikich LLP. So I'm going to turn that over to our finance department, and I believe we have a representative from Sikich online as well.
Good evening. Before I turn this over to Jim Savio, our partner with Sikich LLP, I just wanted to take a few minutes to give you some highlights on the audit process this year. This was our 6th year partnering with Sikich. Our original contract was for 3 years and went from 2017 through 2019. And then we did enter into another 3-year extension for fiscal years 2020 through the most recent 2022. As Bill mentioned, we will follow this annual report discussion up with possibly entering into another 3-year contract with Sikich that Eric will go over. Our field work this year was very much of a hybrid model. Some of it was done remotely by Sikich and some of it was done on site. I will say that they did spend a little more time on site this year, but that had nothing to do with the district. That was solely due to the fact that they had a brand new staff member that they decided to assign to our engagement. So that was fun, meeting somebody new there and helping him learn the audit ropes. And I think it was great that he was able to see such a clean audit. It's easier to learn. And I think that that speaks volumes to our staff and our district. As mentioned, our fiscal year 2022 was a very clean audit again. This means that there was 0 auditor comments and only 1 audit journal entry. The annual comprehensive financial report shows the district finishing with very strong fund balances, which aligns with everything Eric mentioned in March at our year-end financial review. And lastly, our fiscal year 2021 annual comprehensive financial report, which we presented to the board last year, was finally awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. This is the district's 38th consecutive year receiving that award. This is a prestigious national award recognizing the highest standards for preparation of state and local government financial reports. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jim from Sikich, and he will highlight a few of the items in our actual report for you tonight.
Thanks, Trish. Thanks everyone for your time here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Want to start just by thanking Eric and Trish and the entire staff for all of their assistance throughout the entire audit process. Like Trish said, it went very well. Able to get the reports out on time, meet all of our key deadlines. So want to thank them very much for their professionalism. What I'll do is kind of what I do every year. I'll go through the annual comprehensive financial report, walk you through the table of contents just to give you a quick overview of what's in the report. It's a fairly long report, so I'll just give you a highlight of what's in the report, point out a few key items in the report, go over the auditor's communication to the board as well, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll try not to repeat anything that Trish already went through as well. So starting with the annual comprehensive financial report, like I said, starting with the table of contents, you'll notice there's 3 basic sections, the introductory section, financial section, and then statistical section. Under the financial section, you'll see the independent auditor's report on pages 1 through 3, and I'll go through that in a minute. Management discussion analysis starts right after that, and I'll talk about that briefly as well. After that, then is the basic financial statements. You'll see the government-wide financial statements, so your statement of net position, which is your balance sheet, and then your statement of activities, which is your income statement. Those are the consolidated financial statements for the park district, so it has all the funds broken out into governmental activities or business type activities, which is your golf fund. These have a long-term focus, so they have capital assets, they have long-term debt, similar to corporate financial statements. Now, contrast that with the governmental fund financial statements that start right after that on page 6. These have a short-term focus, so there's no capital assets, no long-term debt, just focused on current spendable resources, similar to how you budget. We show major funds as one column, as individual columns, and then the non-major funds are all grouped together in one column. And then there's a reconciliation on pages 8 and 11 that kind of show you how we get from that short-term focus to the long-term focus. After that are the proprietary fund financial statements. This is your Gulf Fund. That's on pages 12 through 14. So this shows, again, a balance sheet, an income statement, and then it also adds in a statement of cash flows. So this has the same long-term focus as the government-wide financial statements, just a little more detail. And like I said, there's a statement of cash flows as well. After that, on pages 15 through 46 are the footnotes to the basic financial statements. So a lot of great additional information that supports the basic financial statements and should be read in conjunction with it. After that is the required supplementary information, or RSI, I might refer to it as. This has budget versus actual schedules for your general fund, and then your one major special revenue fund, which is the recreation fund. And then it also has additional information on your participation in the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, or IMRF, as well as your retiree health plan. After that, then are the combining and individual fund financial statements and schedules, more detailed schedules and budget versus actual info for your major and non-major governmental funds, as well as the Gulf Fund. Then it also has some debt service to maturity schedules for your long-term debt. And then after that, the final section is the stats section. You'll see it's broken out into basically 5 different sections: financial trends, revenue capacity, debt capacity, demographic and economic information, then operating information as well. So a lot of great additional information in there, some 10-year trend information that's pretty interesting, probably more interesting to the non-accountant than some of the other information. So definitely encourage you to take a look at that. So that's what's in the report. I'll start off with the independent auditors report. Last year, we adopted new auditing standards, so it did change the form of the report. So no changes this year. So same format. The opinion starts off the very first 2 paragraphs. In that second paragraph, we issued again an unmodified opinion on the basic financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide to the district. The last paragraph there on page 1, we did adopt a significant new auditing standard, GASB 87, related to leases. So this changed how we account for leases, especially operating leases, which previously were not recorded on the balance sheet at all. 87 now requires you to record information on your balance sheet, both as a lessor and a lessee. So you have both lessor leases and lessee leases. And there's more information on that in footnote 13. Then the last thing I'll point out on the independent auditors report is on page 3. This covers the other matters section. I'll go through this because it kind of tells you what kind of assurance we provide for each of those sections that I just talked about. The required supplementary information, this paragraph basically says we do some limited procedures on this information, but not enough to give an opinion on it. The supplementary information is the combining an individual fund financial statements and schedules. And what these 2 paragraphs say is we give an in relation to opinion, which means that basically in relation to the basic financial statements, they're not materially misstated. And then the other information is the introductory and stats section. This information we don't audit, so we don't give an opinion on it. We do read it to make sure there's no material inconsistencies with the basic financial statements, or we feel it's otherwise materially misstated. If it were so, then we would communicate that to you. Next thing I want to point out is the statement of net position. So these are the government-wide financial statements I mentioned previously on page 4. So this is your balance sheet broken out by governmental activities, business type activities. I just want to point out the changes for GASB 87. So the first change is the lessor side, where you guys are the lessor. The assets, there's a very top section. You'll see about 6 lines down is leases. So this is your lease receivable on the lessor side. And then in the deferred inflows of resources, which is about 2/3 down the page, you'll see the lease items. So this is basically deferred inflows. So these are revenues that relate to future periods, so they're deferred. So those 2 amounts are new amounts put on because of GASB 87. On the lessee side, if you'll notice the capital assets, which is in the asset section up at the top, there's some additional intangible assets for your right to use certain assets under leases. And then there's an offsetting liability for the payments you have to make under those leases. That's in the liability section, which is about halfway down the page. in the non-current liability section. So those last two line items. So that kind of, what it does is basically it removes any off balance sheet financing. So basically any lease that you enter into is going to be recorded on the balance sheet, where previously it wasn't. It was just an expense every year, and you may have a footnote on it. So that was a big change for this year. I'll talk about the governmental balance sheet. That starts on page 6 and 7. And these are the short-term focus financial statements. I'll just take a look at the general fund, which is the very first column. I point this out each year. All the way down at the bottom, the unassigned fund balance is about $1.8 million. This was an increase from the prior year of about 1.5 million. That is roughly 50% of your current year expenditures. So about a 6-month reserve, which is consistent with your fund balance policy, which is explained on page 22.
Jim, is it Jim?
Yeah,
Do you have the 155-page PDF that we have? Because the page numbers that you're giving us don't line up with what I can follow.
yeah, the page numbers I'm giving are the report page numbers.
Yeah, do you give the PDF pages that we could jump to those pages?
I don't have those readily available.
No, it's not. Okay. Like this is, like to me, this is page 8,
These are
right?
all reading numerals.
Yeah, but
When we get to it, you'll actually see the formal numbers. So you saw 3 there, so go down past the MD&A. After you get through MD&A 22, you'll start back up with numbers, and that's where it's at. One more. So there was the original balance sheet he was talking about. If you go a couple more, he is on this one currently. Here's the 1.8 million that he was speaking of on
page 57 of the PDF that we're using. Anybody else which I'm following along?
So I guess in the PDF, are there actually report page numbers, Eric, or not?
There are, but I can't skip to those, right? Like I don't know how to.
So you're going straight off the report. We gave them the PDF. So they're looking
Okay.
at page 57 just.
Okay, let me know if I give the page number, you want me to slow down just so you can catch up, just let me know. So I'm on the report page 6 and 7, went through the general fund. The other thing I'll point out on page 7 in the fund balance, there's some restricted for capital assets under the capital projects fund. That's related to unspent bond proceeds. So that's a new balance this year. Talk real briefly on the on page 9, which is a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this is just a few pages down from the balance sheet. And again, on page 9, I'll just focus on the general fund, which is that very first column. You'll see about halfway down, excess of revenues over expenditures was about $708,000 this year. Last year was about 412,000, so a little bit of an increase. And then net change in fund balance after transfers out of about 1.2 million is a reduction of about $556,000. Last year was about $82,000 decrease. The proprietary fund financial statements, I'll focus on the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. This is on page 13. So a few pages further down. We're still in the basic financial statements. Just point out the results for the Gulf Fund. You'll see the operating income about halfway down the page, about $640,000 operating income, which is pretty consistent with the prior year of $683,000. Right below that, investment income obviously increased quite a bit with interest rates. So in new investments, so almost 23,000 of investment income this year, where there was basically none in this fund last year. And then the change in net position, this is your net income down at the bottom of the page, $580,000 increase. Last year was about 597,000. So pretty consistent results year over year. Last thing I'll put.
If I could mention something really quick.
Sure.
With this Gulf Fund, this is very impressive. This is still an enterprise fund, so it looks looked at as a business. What you've seen in park districts and cities alike, a lot of them have gone to basic governmental funds that are subsidized by other dollars outside the Gulf Fund. So we've been very advantageous to be able to keep this and actually strengthen it as a business account. It's able to reimburse costs to the general fund. It's able to sustain itself. It's able to add the capital. So I just wanted to mention that because that's one thing that really stands out in this part of our audit.
Said another way, golf course does not utilize tax funds.
It pays for itself.
Correct. Great. So the last thing I'll go over on the annual comprehensive financial report is going to be in the RSI section. So it's going to be past the footnotes on page 49.
Hold on one moment, Jim.
Yeah, I'll pause.
Takes a minute for these to keep up too.
Oh, three
Yeah,
times.
they're not. They're in there cranking.
That's better. Beforehand. I know.
Never thought I'd actually want the hard copy of it.
Page after 49, it's 101.
What is it? 101? Thank you.
Yeah, just let me know when you want me to start up.
I'm just glad you asked for a paper copy after.
Okay, I think you can go, Jim.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good now. Thank you.
So I'll go over these last two RSI schedules for IMRF. So this gives you a little information on your participation in the IMRF retirement fund. So 49 is the schedule of employer contributions. So this shows you 8 years. Eventually it'll have 10 years of info on your contributions versus what the actuary at IMRF says you should contribute. So you contribute exactly what you should contribute, and that's noted by the contribution deficiency excess of 0 for each year. You'll see though that the contributions have steadily gone down, and the contribution as a percentage of covered payroll has also gone down from about 19% to about 12%. So significant. That's partly due to IMRF having some great returns the last several years. Now, obviously, for 2022, that wasn't the case, but you can see that it's the burden of the retirement expenses steadily gone down the last 8 years. So that is page 49, and then page 51, a couple of pages later, this is the schedule of changes in the employer's net pension liability and related ratios. This is also for the last 8 years. We'll eventually have 10. This is on the IMRF's plan year. So we're 1 year behind because of the timing and IMRF not really having that information available till typically the end of May, beginning of June. So we don't want to hold up the report. So we're allowed to have year-old information. So this is as of December 31st, 2021. But you'll see up at the top is the total pension liability. So that's what the actuary determines your liability is as of the measurement date of December 31st for each of these years. The plan fiduciary net position, so that's what you've paid into IMRF. That's what's set aside to pay for the liabilities. And then liabilities minus the net position gives you either a net pension liability or an asset. You'll see as of December 31st, 2021, it's an asset of almost $2 million. Now, again, this is 2021, so 2022, not quite as good of a year. So that's going to be reduced, obviously, but a net pension asset right now, as of December 31st, 2021 of almost $2 million. And you'll see 52, it's about 107% funded at that point. So that's all I have on the annual comprehensive
One moment.
financial report.
One moment, Jim.
Sure.
Yes, Jim.
2017, the changes in assumptions, 727,000. What was that?
I believe that was when they decreased, if I remember correctly, the interest rate that they were recognizing for the future. Am I correct on that, Jim? Do you remember?
I think that was 2018.
2018?
Yeah, because I think they reduced
helped
it
us.
then because it increased the liability.
Change of assumptions. What happened in 17?
If you look at the footnote on page 52, it'll give you a brief summary.
Okay, thank you.
But in 17, it was price inflation, salary increases, retirement age, and mortality rate assumptions changed. So you see that on the very first footnote on page 52.
That's what I was thinking. It's when they change their assumptions.
Their mortality.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and then in 2018, that's when they went from, I think, what was it, 7.5 to 7.25, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, and that increased the liability.
Yeah, okay, and that would explain 2020 as well. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so that's all I have on the annual comprehensive financial report. I'll talk real briefly about the auditor's communication to the Board of Commissioners. That's the smaller report. Again, I'll start with the table of contents. You'll see we have a cover letter, and then there's some required communication that we have to have with the board each year. That's required by auditing standards. So that's on pages 2, 3, and 4. We did communicate that we implemented GASB 87, but otherwise pretty routine communication this year. Didn't have any delays, like I said, no disagreements with management. So pretty routine communication on pages 2 through 4. After that, on page 5, we are required to communicate any audit adjustments that we found. So these are adjusting journal entries we found as part of the audit process. So as Trish said, we just had one entry, and that's on page 5. And then we also, I'll point out, we had no what we call past adjusting journal entries. These are entries that weren't recorded because they were deemed to be immaterial, but above a certain floor or a certain amount, we have to communicate that to the board. So we didn't have any past adjustments. So the one item we found that needed to be adjusted was adjusted with AJE 1. And then the management letter starts on page 6. And page 7 is basically just communication in writing that we had no material weaknesses. We also didn't have any significant deficiencies or any deficiencies as well. So again, great job by Eric and Trish and their team for only having one audit adjustment and then no deficiencies noted at all. So that is all I have for the 2 reports, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No problem. I don't really.
Bob was gonna ask the rest of the board, would you like a paper copy next year? Would that be easier?
So we historically would do paper copies. We were getting to the point with COVID and everything where we weren't handing them out. I do have them in my office, and if anybody wants them.
I don't necessarily need a paper copy as long as I've got the same report as we cover. And I think I I've done this in years prior, but I didn't do it tonight. If you download it to your desktop, you don't have to, or save it elsewhere. On a drive. It's far easier to follow in the meeting when Jim is speaking.
That's true. Yeah, I don't need a paper.
Okay.
I'm just looking for PDF pages. I just go. Yeah.
I'll note that for next year.
Scrolling through.
Maybe we'll break that out next year.
And with that being said, if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants further explanation on this, Trish, myself would be happy to go over it via phone call, via Zoom meeting in person. I can tell you Trish has secretly told me this is her favorite part of the year is the audit. I'm not even being funny on that one. And I do truly appreciate what she does. She runs this well. We've had nearly perfect audits every year, and her team with Laura Williams and Linda Shear really do a great job. So it's been also wonderful to work with Jim and Sikich. They've done a great job for us. So.
Thanks, Trish.
Should congratulate you. It's a nice job. Right?
He deserves it, yeah. Jim, I was surprised you didn't say something this year. The prior 3 years, your opening remarks have stated, if you read nothing else in the report, read this.
I'm trying to change it up, keep it kind of fresh.
Well, listen, it worked.
I'm a little
I know.
hurt, Jim. That's the part I write up.
Yes.
I've had like multiple clients always say that that's the one thing they remember is that when I always say, if you only want to read one thing, read the MD&A. So
MD&A, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric and Trish and everyone else.
Yeah, great job, Trish.
Yeah.
So what we would be doing, Kathy, is looking for a motion to accept the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
I'm looking for that motion, please.
And move to accept, fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022 annual comprehensive financial report and management letter as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. McDonald? Aye. Mr. Dahlstrom?
Aye.
Mr. Bender?
Aye.
Mr. Katsula?
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney?
Aye. Motion passed.
I will keep rolling, and just before I start with the next item, this will be placed on the website in the next day or two. It will also be put on file at the county. And we always have copies at the building for anybody that wishes to see them too. Going to the next item, what we're bringing before the board is approval of entering into a 3-year agreement with Sickich for audit services. As Trish mentioned, 6 years ago, we went out for a request for proposals. We only got a few back, and one of them was Sickich's. They made a very competitive proposal at the time. They're very well known in the audit industry as far as governmental audits go. They have a considerable number of clients. If you recall, through our audit policy that was approved back in January, every 10 years, it states we can either change auditors or change the partner / manager within the audit. What that's for is basically just to get a different perspective of the audit. Oftentimes you'll see it in that 10-year range. Some are shorter, some are a little longer. It depends on the community. We've had no issues with Sickich. It's actually become a very efficient activity for us. They went from, I think, about 2 weeks on site 6 years ago to just about 3 days now. They partnered this with some work offsite. One of the benefits of maintaining your audit services is that they do understand your operation. So they do know certain areas to look for, certain areas that may be of particular trouble. And they also know the operation, so they're able to go through stuff at a much more efficient and not always, but often effective pace. So what we're asking for is to enter into another 3-year agreement with Sickich for the coming 3 audits. That'd be 23, 24, and 25. Jim would remain our partner, and Kellen, who's the manager, would remain with us. We do have 1 or 2 other staff that are often on site and others in the background. With this proposal, it is a 4% annual increase price adjustment. With the recent inflation, this felt like a fair amount for the services they provide. And I'm available, Trish is available, and Jim's available if there's any questions.
Any questions?
I think I just have one. Jim, I see you're still on the line. Question for you. It sounds like, well, within our 10-year guideline or policy, we have an opportunity to evaluate if our partner can be or should be removed to create some objectivity. Out of curiosity, does Sickich also have a similar policy or guideline?
We don't, as an audit firm, have a guideline. What typically happens is usually the client will request like either partner rotation, manager rotation, or sometimes we rotate out the entire team so that, you know, down to senior and staff, we just rotate out. So it's really up to the client, kind of what path they want to go down, but we don't have a specific policy regarding that.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yep.
No, I know that Eric and Trish have been very happy with your partnership. And if they're happy and Bill is happy, I think the board is absolutely satisfied. So thank you very much for the efficiency by which you deliver the annual audit. And I'm certainly supportive of maintaining and growing this partnership.
Why is this exempt from RFP?
So with,
Continuation of a contract.
it's a specialty service.
It's a specialty service. Okay.
So
Yeah, no
basically,
problems with Sickich, just.
Yeah, it is considered a professional service, so it's exempt from the bidding.
All right, then. If there's no more questions, I have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the executive director to enter into a 3-year agreement with Sickich LLP for audit services during the fiscal years during December 2023 through December 2025.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Katsula.
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
McDonald.
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney.
Aye, motion passed.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Jim.
Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep, thanks. Like I said, thanks for your time tonight. Do appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yep.
On to strength equipment.
Yes, we'll be seeking approval of the bid for the strength equipment, and I'll turn it over to Dave for an overview.
So this bid was to replace the strength equipment. We've pretty much done all the cardio and now it was strength, and a lot of the strength equipment is 20 years old. You'll notice that we did get 6 bids. On paper, there's 2 low bidders, but when we dove into it, the lowest bidder did not bid on all the objects in the bid. So they're missing three or 4 objects. So that lowered their bid right there. The second lowest bidder was Johnson Health Tech, which actually is Matrix Fitness Equipment. That's not what we spec'd. We did look at their equipment and a lot of their pieces are actually bigger than the current what we spec'd. So one of our concerns was, is it all going to fit? So based on that, we're recommending that we go to Midwest Commercial Fitness, which is what we spec'd. It's true fitness equipment. We also did an alternate bid, the big multi-station that's in the middle of the fitness center. That's only a couple years old, but it's not a true fitness. So we threw that in there simply to say, it would be ideal to have all the same equipment, but to replace a piece of equipment that's only a couple years old for $14,000 to $17,000 just doesn't make sense. It won't change anything. It simply just isn't the same piece of equipment as everything else. So we're asking for approval to go with Midwest Commercial Fitness. I should note this is a lease to own. So we'll continue our leasing through our company we've been, but at the end of 5 years, we will actually own this equipment as opposed to trading it in. And then if we, asking also the board to reject the alternate bid for, in this case, $16,000. So
This is the purchase cost. So we will get the lease information afterwards, which will add an interest cost to it.
Perfect.
That will be a minimal amount comparatively speaking.
Yep. Okay.
And by not accepting the alternate bid, we're going to be under what we had budgeted. Even with accepting the bid, we would still be under, but this gives us more of a cushion.
Got it.
So
Who's the lessor?
American Capital. So I can answer any questions.
Personal question, the benches that we got by the dumbbells now. Flat, chair, or angled? Every other gym I've been to, the chair does all 3.
That's going to be addressed in this.
Because they show up into flat benches.
Correct.
But none of the other ones are, and I'm like, I just want a flat bench.
Right. So the new equipment will have adjustable benches. And actually the benches will also have wheels. So you can wheel them as opposed to picking them up. And again, these are 20 years old, so they just didn't have those types of things back then. They'll be adjustable for incline.
They'll be
Yeah.
inclined to see flat.
Correct.
So when.
You can pick the angle that you,
Just use this.
correct. You'll be able to choose the angle that you want to adjust it to.
All right, I'll be excited.
Again, we're modernizing our, this last portion of the center, so.
Kevin's excited for the wheels for cleaning.
Yes.
Then you get platforms too that we
Mhm.
talk about.
Yep.
Platforms.
So as I mentioned last time, when you hear a lot of the dropping, that's people dropping their weights. We're having a couple platforms that are designed for that. So when they put the weights down, that's what it's for, is to, even if they drop them, it's a wood-based, you don't hear that thump. So, which will also be better for the floor. So.
Eric, what's the interest rate?
We have not gotten that yet. Michelle will be reaching out to them tomorrow. We didn't want to jump to any conclusions before the board approved it.
Got it. Thanks.
And you've done some kind of layout, so it's all.
Yes.
Within.
Yes, we know that this brand will fit. Everything we spec, we know will fit into the fitness center. That was one of the drawbacks of Matrix is they didn't give us any kind of floor plan. We were concerned that it wouldn't fit, so.
Tony has a diagram, I saw.
Mhm.
Can we reject at the same time? as
You
we
can,
accept?
you can approve and then reject the alternate.
At the same time?
Correct.
Okay, may I have a motion that approves and rejects the alternate bid, please?
I guess I make a motion to authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with Midwest Commercial Fitness to complete the strength equipment replacement project not to exceed $129,967, and that the board reject the alternate bid in the amount of $16,835.
I'll second the motion.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bender, Ms. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom, Mr. Katrula,
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney.
Aye, motion passed. Hey, so more fitness equipment.
Yes, now that we did strengths, we're moving on to asking authorization to bid for fitness equipment. And I'll turn it over to Dave.
This is primarily going to be cardio. At the end of 2023, our first lease of the equipment is actually going to be up. So we'll be replacing not necessarily piece by piece, but the 19 pieces that are up, the bulk of those will be cardio, which we will lease again. So we've started now the cycle of where we've gone through leases. This will expire at the end of the year. Again, we're going to bid now, asking for permission to go to bid now. Again, the concern being the longer we wait, the potential to run into, supply chain issues. So.
We'd like it to be in this fiscal year and also hit at that end of the holiday season when we have our greatest usage.
This would be a 5-year period. With maintenance and everything, it'll back up.
Hey, may I have a motion to go out to bid?
Okay, Rachel. I would move that the board grant authorization to bid the replacement of the district's fitness equipment through the expiration of lease agreement.
Second.
Any questions?
One question. In terms of the 19 pieces of equipment, is there any analysis or anything done that we do indeed need 19 pieces of equipment?
Yes, Tony's been working on that. And I can tell you, she thinks we probably have too many treadmills. So we're looking at, maybe downside. We're certainly not going to get rid of all the treadmills, but we may have less treadmills. And we were talking about replacing some of those with what's called a new step. That's the piece of equipment that you kind of sit down. It's cardio. It has pedals, but it also has for your arms. And again, that's very good for older adults. So yes, she's charting that. She's charting the usage, which I think we will see. Maybe not 19 pieces of the exact what we have, but still 19 pieces, but better situated for our users.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Katrula.
Aye.
Mr. Bender.
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald.
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney.
Aye, motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, we're to comments. Well, what do I say? Bob and I could reminisce for hours and would all be somewhat entertaining, maybe not really. But it got me thinking about a lot of things from long ago. 18 years is a long time, 16 for him, so. That's just all I have to say. Any commissioner comments?
Think. You've been alongside of Kathy the longest. Would you like to say anything? I'm putting you on the spot, Sandra. I do that.
I, you know,
Wait till the last meeting.
I know, you know, but I mean, just to, you know, to go with, I had to say is, you know, like. The amount of time spent, the amount of diligence, the amount of. Interest and excitement that both Bob and Kathy have shown is, you know, amazing. I mean, and I think park districts, you know, when you go to all of these events where people are recognized, you know, I recognize the exact same in Bob and Kathy. And that our community has been changed and, you know, ever so lucky, you know, to have had both of them for such a long time. So I'll have more to say in 2 weeks. But on the spot, absolutely, it's been, you know, working alongside of them for, you know, Bob, but has he been off for 2 years now? So 4 years and now 6 years with Kathy. It's, you know, just you know, with it being evaluation time, et cetera, I am actually of the entire Downersboro Park District. Anyone that I talk to, I say sometimes the more time you spend at an organization, you get jaded, you see the underside and you know, you're kind of done with it. The more time I spend with the Downersboro Park District, you know, the more good I have to say. I say that to everyone in the community. I'm like, we're a community and the leadership is strong, the board is strong, and, you know, our community benefits greatly from it.
Yes.
That's my honest opinion.
Thanks. I just want to say, I thought it was fantastic that Bob addressed us this evening. You can still feel and certainly hear, you know, the passion and the commitment that he has for our park district, and how humbling of him to include Kathy in his remarks and share some stories on all the good work that they did for many years. So that was very enjoyable for me, and I think it probably was for you too, Kathy. So it was very nice and touching, I thought.
Exciting that he has, you know, grandchildren who will get to go visit.
Yes, that is a cool.
Yeah, that is very,
Very cool. Okay. Staff reports.
A couple of items, and I will share hold thoughts for the end of next month as well. But I will say the last 2 years since Bob left, I was receiving the call of, I have just one thing to talk about. That was about 6 or 7.
And I
So
thought about this.
missed those.
Well,
been-
but we would.
4 years. Oh, yeah, it's 4. Oh, yeah.
4 years. Sorry, there's a 2-year COVID fog.
There's a big log in the middle of that. That's when I was calling Kathy going, I have about 12 things.
And when Bob said that, I said in my head, yeah, so Bill now gets that. And then I thought, yeah, but if he doesn't call back soon enough, then it gives me time to think of more things. And that does happen.
So with that, going to a couple updates in your board pack was material produced by IPD in regards to the efficiency report that is state statute and required of the district. I will say, I did let IPD know personally. I talked to Jason. I thought they did a really nice job of putting that together. I think it really lays it out well for us and very understandable and taking that legislation and making some sense of it. So I think that was great that they did that. In order for us to meet our timelines and knowing that we will have new board presidents and we will have new board members, that May 18th meeting, well, we're going to try to keep as much business to a minimum as possible. My recommendation is for the board to form that committee on the 18th. So we meet that June 10th deadline because we won't have another meeting prior to that. The big question, and if you want to think about it and get me some names, I have some thoughts. we do need to name 2 people from the community to sit on that as well. Again, the IPD, I think, did a really nice job putting a template together for us to fill in. I fully anticipate staff doing all that. We will fill that all in, bring it, to the committee. I think the committee's work is going to be pretty minimal because we have all, we can fill that in, especially with that template. But happy to answer any questions. And then if you got thoughts on the 2 community members, let me know. I'll pass that along to the board as well. Would like to thank Dawn and Eric. One of our big initiatives this year was diversity, equity, and inclusion with the district. And they put on a little bit of a kickoff, rollout, whatever you want to call it, a little bit of training. And really what it means for us, Downers Grove Park District, that's all encompassing. There was a lot of material that the 2 of them presented to all our full-time staff, talking about definitions and understandings, as well as a lot of statistical data. And I saw a lot of faces from our staff that I think were quite surprised, the number of children that are living in the Red Roof Inn that are our residents, as well as the number of people that we have underneath the property line living within our community as well. So, and that's what we were talking about. That's a very big, broad umbrella. So they're putting together a group of volunteers for a committee, and you'll continue to see more of that. But I'd like to thank them for stepping up and taking the lead on that. Kind of on the same thing, I have a meeting in 2 weeks set up with PADS. I think we're getting a little closer on figuring out some things we need to do for a playground for those children up there. So that continues as well. Our park tour is coming up. We had a little COVID break, and then last year we did the museum tour. And our thought this year, if the board is okay with this, is to do it at Lyman Woods. We would just meet at Lyman Woods, stay there, and allow that staff to do the same thing the museum staff did, is take you through not just the building, but they have really expanded outside, and the amount of programming is really kind of cool. And that would give them an opportunity to present to the board what their programming stuff is. If that works for everybody on the board.
Is it June 1st?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
And that's the one that's like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Correct.
Yes, true.
Next Tuesday, 10 a.m. we close on 947 Maple. And Eric's been once again leading up being the property manager from a lease perspective. So the building will continue to be leased out, both of those buildings. So thanks to Eric for that. And thank you to Kevin. He's handling all the utility transfers and all the other good stuff. And when one of our tenants steals someone else's sign, he runs interference on that. So that closing is on that day. And then finally, I just want to echo thank you to Trish. Not only the amount of work she puts in the audit, but not to have any mentions of any deficiencies is really unusual, to be honest. And that's a huge compliment to her. So thank you, Trish, for doing that. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
Done for me.
I've already asked about my.
You'll call tomorrow.
Okay, recreation, Dave.
So a couple items to highlight for you in the report. With the start of summer registration, you may have noticed that our summer camp registration has actually already exceeded what we ended last year, which is fantastic. Part of that is because we've actually are able to increase the maximums kind of where we were in the past, and we've also added some more sessions. So again, but it just shows how popular the camps are. I know I've mentioned the sports participation in the past, but again, it just continues to grow. 1,400 kids in soccer and over 500 kids in football for the spring. It's interesting to note in spring of 2019 for soccer, we had 739 kids. And now we're at 14, almost 14 and a half. So With that, of course, there's challenges with getting more fields and, and we're working on that. And I would say though, this is our new norm. The spring always used to be a lot less. And we would have 13, 14, 1,500 kids in the fall. But baseball and softball, but so our new number is, we're, 13, 1,400 going forward, 700 is long gone. So
The real interesting thing behind that number is we really saw a lot of drop off after third grade in the program, and we're not seeing that drop off anymore. And I actually expressed that to our staff, that I think that shows the quality program that we're putting out, that where we were seeing drop off, we're not seeing the drop off anymore. So that's what's helping while we're getting more new kids coming in, helping fuel that number to come up because we're keeping them longer.
Also, the Daughters of the American Colonist presented a plaque, which is now on the outside of the 1846 house, and that basically helps commemorate the role in the Underground Railroad.
Out of curiosity, did they used to be the DAR and now they're the Daughters of the?
I believe it's a different group.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a different offshoot, so. And then the first day of registration for summer programs were resident and non-resident. So for total for those two first days, for 2023, we were at 497,252. So almost 500,000 in 2 days. And last year, that was a total of 466,000. So it increased $30,000. And again, a 2-day total, we're pretty happy with that. And then I just wanted to point out in the fitness report that our full price fitness memberships for the month of March, we are at 1,900. So compared to last year, that is an increase of 350 memberships. When you compare that to 2019, we were at 2,747. So we're at 70% of where we were for 2019, which is actually what Eric and I we based the budget on this year was 70% of that total. Just so the board is aware, what I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to add a column in there. So 2019 will always be present. Instead of just referring to it, you're going to see it there. That's our benchmark. So that will be added to all the fitness charts going forward. So we have that. But the numbers continue to grow. I suspect at the end of the year, if we maintain our pace, we'll be probably closer to 80% of where we were. But that's it for the rec report. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Please. I got two, but go right ahead.
Just real quick. I just always wondered why the fitness report isn't done as part of the monthly reports. It's always under board information. And if I don't know if we want to put it in as part of the recreation report or.
Yeah, we could. I mean, that's, I'm looking at Kathy because it's kind of historical. The board had asked, 6-7 years ago, to peel that out separately and have that as a separate report and not as just part of the overall recreation report. And that's the same thing that happened with golf. So that's why you see during the winter, we do a kind of standalone fitness report and have the fitness.
Okay.
And then in the summer, we switch over to golf, but we include those reports within there. So
Fair enough.
however you want to do that, I mean, we're willing to do whatever, but that's why those are split out. And frankly, we were having some issues with the fitness center and declining membership and some revenue struggles. And while I think we've turned that around and we're on pace, I always said I thought it'd take about 2 years from the end of COVID restrictions to get us back to where we needed to be. I still think it's good because it is a big part of our business to watch that. So that's really where that came from.
And I could very easily combine the recreation fitness into one overall report. So that's fine.
I'll be honest, Bob, he's gonna have to do it separately for me anyway, because that's how I track it. So.
Bob wants less clicks. I've got two. In terms of the fitness report, overall fitness and rec memberships, next month, could you include demographic data? I'm just curious at where our membership
Should be able to pull that.
currently stand.
Okay.
And then My second question is going to come back to me momentarily. When I think of it,
Look left.
yes. I know. We can move forward, and Dave, if you don't mind, when it comes back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay.
No. Okay, who,
Oh, I do remember now. Sorry for interrupting you. My understanding was, maybe I have the date wrong, but April 15th is generally the date by which we avail fields
Correct.
to our, non-affiliates. I'm just curious at what the requests look like this year.
We have gotten some. And actually, I just talked with Anna Kish about this today. One of the travel baseball groups submitted a request. I believe they were looking for close to 20 dates. We're trying to accommodate them, but we know we're not gonna be able to accommodate all 20. So Anna's still in the process of working on that.
Got it.
We've gotten another request from the travel softball portion. I think that was the Cheetahs looking for some extra dates. We don't have all the Dolls dates at this, even though we should have, we don't have all theirs yet. So we're not ready to release, but we're trying to, if we can accommodate some of the outside groups, that is our goal.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for us to wait that dates.
Oh, no, that's not where I was going with this at all. My thought process here is, it would be really interesting over the last 4 years if we knew how many requests we fielded. And then maybe a poor choice of words, how many requests we received. And then we also were able to quantify the number of fields that were required. I think this just helps maybe perhaps supplement the upcoming feasibility study for Delaware.
Yeah, and in the last couple of years, we made the decision not to rent to outside groups because of COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
So that took that out of the mix, but she has, prior to that, should have numbers of what we did do. And of course, going forward, we'll have that too, but the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't took the stance, we just couldn't, make the commitment to outside groups because of COVID. So we're slowly moving back towards that.
Probably the single greatest question I get is about field usage this time of year.
She's got a big piece of the puzzle that she, trying to accommodate as much as possible.
Had her on Zoom talking about that. Partially with our soccer program growing as much as it is too.
Yeah.
Trying to get that jigsaw puzzle to work.
Okay, thank you.
okay, who's doing golf?
I'll touch on golf real quick.
Okay,
March, there's not a lot to report. What Bill and I talked about, we'll have Ken come back in the summer months and make a face-to-face presentation. But the biggest thing I can say in the golf report is if you look at the rounds for 22, we were at 1,300 and the rounds for 23 were at 529. And that's pretty much all weather related. We've already closed the gap quite a bit with the latest warm weather we just had. It seemed like every Saturday in March and early April, it was the threat of rain or snow, or it was 25 degrees out. And so Ken already said we've closed the gap quite a bit. The one thing he did mention is people, when they're coming into the clubhouse and they see the new merchandise, the new merchandise apparel is flying off the shelves. So very popular so far.
I didn't see that in the report. Do we have final sales numbers for March?
For as far as sales for apparel or?
For golf.
We can get that. We'll send that out to you.
I think it's combined with all merchandise.
Right.
Right. But we'll see if we can pull it out.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, T-Snap has it.
It should be in there. So we'll,
2 Fridays ago, it was $2,500 in one day.
right.
But he has a stack of hangers
Yeah.
of stuff so
That's been what?
that's sold.
Oh, sold. I thought you said stolen.
No. Oh, so
Okay.
this is the interesting dynamic is the men generally come in and just, they don't even look at the price tag, just buy stuff. And the ladies come in and say, well, we'll wait till it goes on sale.
I didn't,
You did.
I just, right off the shelf.
That's what we were going
He's put in a couple big orders because we are selling stuff
I like that it said like on the sleeve, it says like the oldest golf course.
Oh, isn't that cool?
I mean, I went in there the other day for the first time in a long time and I was attracted to it and I don't look at clothes usually.
Yeah. I've worn that a couple places and I'll get people to stop and go, where is that? That's really cool. Yeah.
The merchandise looks really cool.
And Kevin may mention this, but I'll just say the painting was done, or go ahead.
No, good. You go ahead.
Your report. I'll.
No, so all the painting and the lettering on the side of the clubhouse was all done on Tuesday this week, so.
And they're all lit.
It's all sweet.
I know. And the pergola goes in
Monday.
Monday,
Yeah, I think he said.
and the display cases are here. They just need to be installed.
Huge.
So if there's any other golf questions, I can answer them, but we're trending in the right direction again with, the last weekend. Saturday, there was not a tee time to be had. Sunday there was because it was 30 degrees and rainy, so it's all weather dependent at this point.
And we had an Arizona visitor today.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Okay, we're to marketing. Dawn.
All right, so we have a very busy couple of weeks coming up here. So this Saturday, we have our Earth Day cleanup. So that'll be held at Fishel Park and Dunham Place. So we're going to get those parks looking sharp for our other events that are coming up. So we'll be mulching and picking up garbage and that sort of thing. We have about 30 volunteers helping with that. And then next week on Friday is Arbor Day. So we have our seedling giveaway, and I'm sure Kevin will be speaking about some of our other Arbor Day activities coming up. And then at your place, you have your invites for the Gelwick's Park dedication ceremony, which will be May 21st. And then the Belmont Golf Club opening celebration will be the 20th. So we're moving right along for all of those events. Our final plans for the summer concert series are all coming together. We have our food vendors lined up. We've got some great press out there. So people are picking up our article and sharing that out. We'll do our staff trainings in the next couple of weeks and we'll be all set for that. And then the last topic I wanted to talk about was McCollum Park. So we have secured another sponsor for the improvement project. So this is a lower level sponsorship. This is for the tennis courts and pickleball courts. So Community Bank of Downers Grove has signed on to be that level sponsor with us. And then we also have next Wednesday, Home Depot has given us $25,000 in goods and volunteer hours to do mulching and plantings that are going to be happening on, like I said, on Wednesday. It will be in the areas that are not under construction, obviously. So around the playground and the other trees throughout the park. And then we will have a small portion of the funds available after the cleanup day and work day to use toward additional plants. So I wanted to say thanks to Paul and Kevin and their teams for all of their support through this. I know it's been quite the project that we didn't have radar for this spring, but I think it'll be really nice to see that finished product, and it'll just be nice to have a new partner. So, and then lastly, our team has been working on the new branding for the spray ground. So, the leadership team, we talked about whether or not we needed to do some new branding, and we decided that we did. So Adventure Falls is what we have decided to rebrand the entire area that encompasses the spray ground, miniature golf, and the sport courts. So we talked a little bit about minor mics and how we maybe need to change that up a little bit and create a whole area that can be a local destination for family fun. So really trying to use that idea of how we can use this as rental opportunities, as well as just kind of that day-long experience for families. So we have some smaller signage that would be used in the specific areas. The other great thing is that the URL for Adventure Falls has not been taken, so we can do a website for this whole project, which will be really fun. And Danielle also mocked up, our sponsorship in there, and our idea is that we would have, the main branding on the front of the concession area, as well as some really fun directional signage that will kind of tie everything together. So we're hoping that this will provide us with some flexibility as we move forward. So trying to come up with something that could incorporate the existing amenities that we have in miniature golf, like the waterfall and some of those more Wild West looking things, but then also playing off of the spray ground features. So trying to tie it all together, but then still give flexibility so that if we change the theming in the miniature golf course in the future, we can still use this brand. So we hope that you guys like it. I wanted to give a shout out to Danielle. Again, she was invited to join us this evening, but she prefers to stay behind the scenes, but I want to make sure that she's recognized for all of her hard work on this. So
I love it. I love the typeface.
yeah, and the color scheme complements our existing park district branding, but also with the new font, it kind of adds a little bit of fun.
I can't believe that the URL was available.
I know.
Right.
I even checked it again today. I'm like, is this for real? And I was like, no. So yeah, Chris is working on securing that for us. So
Is there any fear of blowback from pickleball folks, because there's a tennis ball on there?
I hadn't considered that, but we could consider adding two little balls kind of.
I just don't want to upset any.
Oh, I understand. And we did talk about kind of encompassing both the sand volleyball courts and the basketball courts as well, so that it's that whole side of McCollum Park that is part of this area.
That's a great idea.
So you don't have the baseball, soccer side and then the adventure ball side.
Yeah.
Great job.
Very fun. Yeah.
And that concludes my.
Save the best for last.
Yeah.
Went out with a big finish.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah, that was, they approached us.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there must be.
So we must be hearing good things about it.
Just a curiosity question. What is Unplug Illinois?
Yeah, so Unplug Illinois is, it's part of the state initiative where the IPRA came up with this initiative several years ago. We haven't really jumped on that bandwagon yet. And so our team thought, we haven't done anything for this state initiative, so let's come up with an event. And so each year we will focus on a different area of recreation programming. So this year we're going to focus on our creative programs, so dance, theater, art, and we'll have all of the activities at the Lincoln Center that kind of focus on that. And then maybe next year we change it up to plug into nature, and it could be all nature-based activities. So trying to highlight our different program areas and encourage people to unplug and enjoy recreation. So.
Did I miss it? Did you say how much the community bank sponsorship?
Oh, yes. So the community bank sponsorship is going to be a 2-year agreement. So that 2 years will be $15,000. So in year one, we'll be allocating $2,500, and then in year two, it will be the remaining balance.
So will the outside of, like I say, Jackson Dench, like, will there be another hang down part there for?
Yeah, so the tennis courts are going to be a little bit different. So there's the main entrance that's kind of in the center of the court system. There will be a large panel there with their logo on it. And then we also are going to do some banner placements for them that'll have their logo on it.
Just be on the main adventure falls.
Yeah, it'll just be Jackson. Yep.
What material will that signage and the signage be made of?
That's a very good question. I don't have an exact answer for you.
I was
But
thinking something other than wood.
yeah, most likely, I mean, given that our budget is a little limited, we thought maybe we would do it on that dye bond. It's like an aluminum signs that can have a printed graphic on top. That's the low cost option. Maybe it's something where we do that in year one, and we can look at doing something a little fancier once we have a little bit
I
more
was just
money to
thinking-
allocate.
The weather prevention.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Wood tends to rot over a period of time.
Yes, and we've learned too that even other materials are still not woodpecker approved, so. The dye bond is aluminum.
They're out.
Yeah,
They've been out.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're picking up my skylights.
yeah,
No, I
they're
heard about
persistent.
the side of my
Oh my God, it's like, are you crazy?
Yeah, so yeah, I think our vision was that this would be on a material that could withstand, weather and have that vinyl graphic that's actually printed on top of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. Oh.
Good luck following that up.
Yeah.
To like do some adjusting.
In the lineup?
Yeah.
Just give it to Dawn.
Yeah. Good evening. Just quickly an update at McCollum. We're ready to really get rolling now that the weather is improving. March was a bit of a roller coaster. Dave talked about, some of the weather challenges we had in March, late March, we had some big storms, and then now it's getting much better. So you'll see a lot more activity starting out there at this point. The nice weather last week allowed them to get in and they actually were able to run quite a bit of the piping that will lead from the building where all the mechanical equipment will be located. The new portion of the building will have the pumps and the filters and everything. The piping from that out to the splash features. So a lot of that piping they've started running it again out from the building. So that's exciting, and they'll be starting to excavate for the actual splash pads now. So they've got some work getting started there. And they were actually on the path today, starting to frame. So along the pathway, the perimeter pathway, we have quite a few benches that we're replacing. We're putting new benches, and we will pour little concrete slabs for those. They're going to be pouring those tomorrow. And then they're anticipating the asphalt plant opening sometime next week, which is when they can really start on the pathway, replacing the pathway itself. So hoping things will get really exciting out there in the next couple of weeks. And then Dawn mentioned the volunteer event, the event that's happening next week. Planning staff will be out helping to coordinate, because part of what's going to happen are some plants that Home Depot is donating about 400 plants, perennials. And the volunteers will be installing those in the beds, the raised beds at the playground. And so we're excited about that. So we're going to help coordinate, locating those plants and and getting those in the right spot. And then we'll have more plants coming with some of the leftover money. That the goal is to replant some of our beds. The splash pad project, there will be some new plants, some new beds installed as part of that project. So we're trying to kind of refurbish some of the beds south of that in the playground and the baseball area that were last planted in 2012 when we did that renovation project. And so need a little sprucing up and all new material. So that's what we're working on to have in place when the splash pad and that project ends and all of that opens up. So happy to answer any questions.
I only have one question. I forgot to ask you this. Did someone check the gander disbander?
No. I don't know.
Yeah, because there were geese all over the place.
Where
But my observation is that the geese may, that's why I'm asking, may have figured out not to be in the water.
right.
Because they were all over the edge of the pond, and they were in someone's yard on the west side. That yard is gonna be full of you know what. It was amazing.
So we've been putting the fake coyotes out there and shifting those around. We've been trying everything, trying to figure out a way to push them away. And it seems like what they're doing is one day they'll be gone, the next day they'll come in, and then they just kind of stay in people's yards, it seems like. And you'll get a couple of them that'll go in the pond.
Yeah, that's what I've sort of been seeing. They
Right.
don't go by the disbander.
Right. It's like they stay outside of it.
They're infiltrating and it's.
Well, and I sent
horrible.
Bill a picture. I don't know if you.
I did not share it with you.
The other day, there was. You were with
Little
me.
family.
Whole little family, right next to the, one of those coyotes.
Yeah,
Like right,
yeah.
like, they weren't scared at all of
They
it.
catch, no, they catch on. Initially, it helps and then they catch on and then that's it. They're, you
The
know,
ones that
they're done.
spin, you know, I know people pull them up and throw them in the.
Yeah, they threw them in the pond and then shoved them in the garbage cans and, you know, Mike has been struggling with that. He said,
They seem to work.
yeah.
But I,
Having meetings.
all I'm saying is. Those neighbors are not gonna be happy.
No, I know, unfortunately, and that's
And
the,
I don't know, yeah.
that's the hard part is, you know, we're trying to keep them away from the pond. However, they seem like they're going in everyone's yard.
Hey, Dave, we can repurpose Miter Mike and have him just walk around.
Chasing the geese away.
Yeah.
Dawn, are you envisioning like a scene in a Pixar film? Instead of talking about beating the gander spander?
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that.
Oh, I'm
Geese.
not a fan.
They're, yeah.
But it's just. Some of them, some of those households are not happy.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that's the difficult part. I'm not sure. It's, you know, we've looked at a lot of different options and Mike even went as far because the next thing we're going to try is they have a product they spray on the grass around there. And apparently they don't like it. So they're supposed to leave. So that's the next thing. Right. But the thing we could do is maybe we could spray the parkway up in that, right at the edge.
Oh.
That might help, but they'll probably still go in the backyards and they spend a lot of time. There's that vacant yard on the southeast corner of
Yes.
Prince Pond. They spend a lot of time back there as well.
How much would it cost to load a plane up and just dump all of Downers Grove with that spray?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. I think it's like $40 a gallon. So, but we're gonna give it a shot at least around the pond and see if it helps anything. But it's a challenge, that's for sure. I mean, Mike has been adamant. He's every morning, him and I talk about it, you know, it's like, is there anything else we can do? You know, and it's and, you know, I've gotten an email from you know, one of the neighbors stating that the geese are in my yard. And I said, yeah, I said, you know, if there's a way we can help it, we would, you know, it's just it's hard,
I know,
you know.
you can't. Stop them from going really much.
It's like Carl and the gopher, Mike and the geese.
Yeah, that's it, pretty much it. Yeah, he's probably spending more time than he'd like, but he doesn't mind it. He goes by there in the morning and he checks it out and he gives me the report.
Okay, sorry, I'm running.
That was fun.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Well, we're to Parks and Facilities.
Okay, there we go. I'll try to keep this short, but Parks and Facilities has been very busy lately. Parks has been just out we have all the restrooms are open, all the drinking fountains are on, all the athletic fields are up and going. You know, all the activities, you know, the pavilions, you name it, we pretty much have most of that stuff ready. We're somewhat ahead of the game. However, the weather last week kind of pushed us, it seemed like a little bit further than we wanted to be, but we started mowing this past week. This is about a month earlier than we normally mow or started mowing last year. So it's obviously we're out there very busy. So the facilities department, we had the HVAC project that happened here. That was a 5 days of a whirlwind. They got done right at 3:00 on Friday. So, they had all the units running. However, we're working through some issues, not major issues, just little minor tweaks. They handed over the building automation to us last Friday. So we're operating everything internally now. So but everything seems to be going fine with it. So and we haven't heard a whole lot of complaints as far as temperatures and all that. So we're happy about that. The elevator, I don't know if you noticed, all the signs are down. That project went much better than they thought it was going to be. It was the cylinder, it all rotted out at the bottom, and they were able to get everything out without having to bring in the Vector truck or do additional work and all that. So although it took 4 months to get done, it's done, and you know, hopefully it lasts us another 30 years. And then I don't know if you've seen at the golf clubhouse, we replaced the countertops in the restrooms and the sinks and faucets and everything there. That was one of the other highlights. I know to me, it looks much better. And then last but not least, Dawn touched on Arbor Day. So we'll be giving 500 seedlings away. Mike, I think, plans on putting some out here at the rec center. So the community can pick them up. And that's pretty much all I have. I'll take any questions.
Works and feels are looking good.
Good. Yeah, we keep plugging away at it. It's you know, once we get through the routine a few times, things will continue to look better.
Aaron.
Thank you. I want to start briefly with IT and a couple improvements that we've had. The first, as you'll notice, Chris is nowhere to be found. We've advanced so far that he can host this meeting from anywhere. So he is in the safety of his house right now, hosting our meeting. We appreciate that.
He misses his smiling face.
I'm sure he misses all of us too. The other major improvement that I want to mention is the park district here at Downers has been very advanced when it comes to co-location service. There's not a lot of local governments, especially park districts out there, that go to that extent. And Chris has actually even strengthened this further. So over the years, he's actually reduced the price of these services to have everything backed up at a safe facility. And with some of the savings this year, he has actually created multiple separated from our network backups of our system. So what that means is even if something infiltrated our system, we have backups in, I believe it's Chicago and on the East Coast that are completely separated that a virus or something couldn't get to. That's in addition to having all these backups that can be restored if we ever lost our resources for any reason, natural disaster or something. So that's a great strength that we now have that we didn't have before. And I just wanted to commend him and his IT tech, Eric, on that project. On the finance side, you won't hear me say this often, but I'm very excited to see our cash falling. We've actually fallen below 2022 for the balance. This is something we want to see because a lot of this is being held for capital. Between COVID, some strong financials, and our debt issuance last year, we've had that additional cash out there. And that will be spent throughout this year and probably into next before you see that the graph that we have in this report get back to kind of similar levels that we were used to back in 19, 20, and 21. So that's great to see. And on the other side of that is our revenues very early in the year. So I do want to caution that we're a quarter in, but I've seen 30% with 30% of our annual revenues coming from charges for services, they're performing very strong. Dave mentioned this earlier. From a financial side, our rec fees are up 15% so far for the 3 months this year. That even exceeds what Dave and I worked with staff on budgeting for. And it's about 30% greater than last year. So these are very strong numbers. We are not seeing any signs at this time of any slowdown. I'll keep the board updated on that because I know there's a lot of talk out there in the media about the economy and what could happen, but that's very reassuring to see. Dave was mentioning golf. The financials have gotten to the point, I just looked at it today, that we're actually exceeding last year at this time. So we've fully made up for it, so that they're doing a great job out there, and I think the merchandise has helped a lot. On the expense side, we're tracking exactly at the same percentage of operating expenditures as we did last year. What I do is I take the year-to-date total divided by what we spent for the full year last year. That was 17% through March. When we look at that from a budget perspective, we're at the same place. So that means we're controlling our expenses. They look good. Capital's moving well. I don't see any concerns at this point to mention. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Somebody's got to have a question for him. Come on. No question for Eric?
Oh, question now.
Okay, save them up for next time. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Okay, C-Spark.
I have no report.
Okay. Any unfinished business?
None.
Any new business?
I have none.
Okay, then I'll announce the next Downers Grove Park District Park Board meeting will be held May 4th, 2023 at the Recreation Center multi-purpose. May I have a motion to go to executive closed session.
I move to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Dahlstrom,
Aye.
Mr. Bender,
Aye.
Mr. Katrina,
Aye.
Ms. Mahoney.
Aye. Motion passed. Good evening, everyone.
Chris is gonna turn that on.
Okay,
Good night, everybody.
Done, just let me know.
thank you, Chris.
Hey, Chris, recording, let me know at the front.
I never done.
Yeah.
Hold it.